Hey there, in this YouTube video, we'll be going through how to revive your email list and get out of spam in the next 30 to 60 days. But before we dive into this, you're probably going to be wanting to know, who am I and why the hell should you listen to me? So, my name's Tom, a direct response copywriter who's worked the past 3 years in-house within the nicotine industry. I've helped distributors and brands like Ice enter the UK market, both retail and e-com wise. I run different assets from POS copy, B2B cold emails, D2C cold emails. In this video, as this video suggests, my main bread and butter was D2C email marketing and email deliverability. So let's dive into this. Understand your situation before you act. Now, if your open rates are below 30% across board, flows and campaigns, that's what I mean by across board, you've got a problem. If your open rates are mixed, i.e. you have low flow open rates but high campaign open rates, it could be a number of issues. So what I'm going to suggest you do is build what I call an inbox placement account. So it'll be tomtom@gmail.com, and this is simply just going to be a Google account that you send test emails to. This way you can see where your email ends up in a fresh account. So if it's spam, you know you've got a deliverability problem. Promotions, you've probably got a deliverability problem. And if it's primary, the reason for low open rates are probably poor subject lines, among a few other variables, but at least you can start to rule them out, right? After this, you're going to want to set up something called Google Postmaster. Why? Unlike other ISPs, like Outlook and Yahoo, Gmail doesn't report its data to your ESP, so Klaviyo, MailChimp, etc. So essentially, without Postmaster, you're flying blind when it comes with your Gmail customers. Postmaster is going to be how you track numbers and find out where any leaks are. So I'm about to show you an example. We did a client recently and why Postmaster was key for its success. Why Postmaster is so beautiful. Beforehand, this client was getting awful open rates, which you can find attached below. They had a completely dead list, and when we onboarded them, they hadn't emailed their list for a few months. Not to mention they were stuck in spam and had the wrong DNS set up, among many other issues. So as you see before on the left, my eyesight's poor, so 16 to 23% open rates, and on the right, 58% to 79%. Okay. And they've got a very small list, but as mentioned, they've been mailing for months, and in the first 30 days generated them 10,000. So as I'll break down below, this is their domain and authentication settings on Postmaster. So the main reason for the open rates wasn't just the email content itself, but it was also the wrong setup on the back end. So as you can see, before working with us, they had a 0% success rate at the DMARC. When working with us, they had a 100% success rate at the DMARC. So the DMARC, the SPF, and the DKIM are basically key for the Sender 2024 requirements. And these basically mean all your DNS has to be set up correctly. If they're not set up correctly, you're going to get hit hard on the deliverability front. So a quick way to find out if you have them all set up correctly is go to mail-tester.com, send a test email to them, and you'll be able to see all of your results regarding authentication, if you're on any spam lists, so on and so forth. I really recommend this software. Another great way to spot the specific problem when it comes to authentication is if you find when you do a mail tester test, that sounds weird to say, but yeah, mail tester test, and they've basically you've got an authentication failure, you'll then go on MX Toolbox, type up the domain you're sending it from, and you can see all sorts of things, right? So for example, with this client, they happen to have 2 twin DMARC records. So it basically just meant they had no DMARC record and they were failing 100% of the time due to that. Or you can keep watching this video and I'll show you how to set up Postmaster, right? So next, domain reputation. This part is huge. Not enough people talk about this. So your domain reputation is a reflection of your email's engagement rates, right? So as you see, they start on medium, which is average, but average ends you up in promotion tabs, right? If you want to get main inbox placement like they have now, you have to get it to a high domain reputation. And we'll get on to how to do that a bit further in this video, but it's the lower the reputation of your domain is usually a reflection of low email engagement. The worse rep you have, the more spam filters you're likely to trigger, and so as you can see, there's an importance for Postmaster. It allows you to spot these leaks, and here's how you can set it up. So Postmaster setup, if you access Google Postmaster tools, so visit Postmaster tools, sign in with a Google account, add your domain. When you verify your domain, you'll basically get a TXT record. Just put that into your domain provider like GoDaddy. Add a TXT record and then click verify. I'll attach this gamma presentations, so you can go through step by step. But yeah, real simple. Take you 5 minutes, and now we'll be building a branded domain. So when you set up a branded domain, this part is super simple as well, so I'm going to make it brief. A branded domain is simply a domain that's dedicated to your email list. That's why you may hear some people call it a dedicated email domain. The domain is usually a subdomain from your root domain. So for example, say my root domain is tom.com, while my branded domain will likely be send.tom.com, if that makes sense. If not, I'm going to plot some screenshots on the screen here. So like a good dedicated setup is mailed by, so k3klaviyo.send.neurogum.com, signed by, which is the DKIM that we were talking about earlier, send.neurogum.com. A bad dedicated setup, and I'm not going to call this brand out because that's just rude, but the domain isn't on there. It's some random letters, as you can see here, and by no surprise to me, they're in spam, right? Gmail doesn't know who's sending this, so for all they know, it could be loaded with loads of bugs and phishing hooks, right? So if you can kind of understand this, it just needs to be clear that it's mailed by your domain, and the subdomain basically allows you to keep a separate domain for email, so it's a lot easier to manage for deliverability and some other things we're going to touch on. Setting up a dedicated goes as follows. If you choose your domain, so a subdomain, be like emailyourname.com, helpyourname.com, support, etc. You can, so then load up your DNS provider like GoDaddy, find the domain set up in Klaviyo. And by the way, for this example, most of the examples will be using Klaviyo, but I'm sure MailChimp and like ActiveCampaign is a very similar procedure. If you go into account, click settings, click domain and hosting, add sending a domain, and then enter the subdomain you've chosen. Then simply copy and paste the DNS records from Klaviyo and put them into GoDaddy or, as mentioned, whatever hosting platform you're using. Save changes. Now, this one is a big one. A lot of people forget to turn it on as a default sending address. So that means you've set up this beautiful subdomain, but you're still sending it from the old domain. So just make sure to go back into your settings and make sure it's your default sending address, right? Or address domain. And then test the domain. So send it over to the inbox tester we were on about earlier, that Gmail account you have. And if you go click on the email while you're on a laptop, you'll see on the top left-hand side, it'll be sent from tom.com, for example. Click the drop-down arrow and you can find if these are set up correctly. And then on the right-hand side, there should be 3 dots. Click that, show original, and you'll see if you passed the DMARC, DKIM, and SPF. I won't dive into how to set those up in this video, but I will do in a further video. For this one, we're just going to keep on to how to improve your domain health and reputation. So when you set up these domains, you'll be given 2 options by Klaviyo. One's a static domain and one's a dynamic domain. The difference between the two is a static domain is a fixed domain. So this means if you had send.tom.com, it's not going to change. If you have a dynamic domain, it's going to be for different segments. So for example, a promotional one, promo.tom.com, and for customer service, help.tom.com. These are tongue twisters, but you get my point. Static domains have a lot more benefits, in my opinion, than dynamic domains, because you've only got one subdomain. It's a lot easier to manage. You understand where the traffic's going. You know, it's easier to, if there is damage, control it, but make sure there's no damage, right? And keep the reputation just going up. Dynamic domains, you've got a lot of things to manage, and it can be useful if you've got a huge list. So say you had a massive list and you wanted to just put domains onto different things, as mentioned earlier, like help, support, promo, fair enough. But I'd always recommend a static domain. But yeah, point being, subjective. If you think you'd prefer a dynamic one, set that up for your business. You know, no right answer. Now we've got the technical stuff out of the way. Let's get into the segment and sorting. So the lost action of list cleanings. I haven't really heard too many people talk about list cleaning in a long time, which is super wild to me, as I'm about to show you. You've more than likely got some nasty accounts hiding in your list whose sole purpose is to trap you in spam. Just check this out. So you can see here, spam traps, right? So these little shits are basically old accounts that ESPs like Gmail will hold. So it's an account someone used to use, they don't use anymore, but because they don't use it anymore, Gmail now keeps it to see who keeps mailing them. Because if you're mailing an account that's not responding to any of your emails, not opening any of your emails, then by definition, in ESP's eyes, you are spamming them. So these, as the name suggests, are spam traps, right? You mail them, you'll hit spam trigger, you get put in spam. All of this stuff here is from Clean 13, so I'd recommend going on there and getting the software. Amazing software, super easy to break down, and you get a beautiful sheet like this. And yeah, these are all different types of email addresses you can get. I won't go through all of them. Feel free to pause the video. It breaks it all down. But spam traps are the main ones you want to look out for, and malicious actually. These guys are, as the name says, readers aren't up to any good. For segments, you don't really need anything complex on this part. Just break down your audience into segments like has opened two times in the last 14 days, click once in the last 30, has opened 3 times in the last 30 days, and clicked once in the last 45. I won't read through the rest, but as you can see here, it's just incrementally increasing the date range. In this exact same order, spread your list. So you'll be mailing the 14-day engaged 3 times a week. Once it hits 60% open rates plus 1% click rates over 3 times, move on to the next segment. Rinse and repeat until the 60 days. The 60 days and the 90 days, I'll put those in one group together. You kind of want to mail those a bit more sparingly. And the reason behind that is a lot of those people in those lists will either not be interested in your brand, or they're just tire kickers. So they'll just open your emails and not really click or browse your store. They just signed up for a discount that they'll never use. And you may also be saying that, sure, but there's going to be customers in there, and you're 100% correct. There will be. That's why you'll set up something like a win-back flow. So anyone that has actively opened your emails in the past, gone across your site, ordered products, so on and so forth, just positive actions by a reader, you can basically build a flow that will retarget them over X period of time. So yeah, if you haven't got any recent data on your list, based on your newest signups, they're going to be people that are more likely to open your email. They're fresh to your brand. They've signed up to your email list for a reason. So yeah, they're probably going to be the most engaged. If you haven't got access to this, so for example, if you didn't have an opt-in going, it's just an old list you're working with, you've got to just work with the data you have, right? So I just backtrack to as close as I can to where it's accurate data, even if it's a year, 2 years, and just start from there. Important side note, some of you watching this more than likely have a dedicated domain already set up, and if that's the case, then ignore this part. But if you haven't set up your dedicated domain, please put it through a warming period. So turn off all your flows except key flows like welcome, post-purchase, abandoned cart, and key emails within that. So ones that are high performers, so they're doing above 50 to 60% open rate and 1 to 2% click rate, keep those on because they'll actually help your deliverability. Anything else is just tanking your reputation and giving you worse inbox placement. Send only to the 14-day engaged, and then slowly spread your list once you hit a minimum of 60% open rates. And as weird as this sounds, you want to prioritize engagement over revenue for the time being, because a warmed up list that has a really good relationship with readers is a very lucrative asset. So bear that in mind when you're doing this warming period, that you're not going to make as much money, but it's like an investment. It'll pay super dividends in the days to come. Last but not least, what type of emails to send. So there's a huge debate between equal marketers on saying plain text versus design for deliverability. And there's a super fine line between design actually affecting your deliverability. And this comes down to your file size. So if you have a huge file and you just shoot that out to your list, then no surprises. It's not going to do any justice to your email list and deliverability. If it's correctly compressed and sliced, it'll be just fine. The only reason design can hinder your deliverability is if you've got bad practices, right? And a performance standpoint, there's no right answer to this. It's subjective to your list. So test plain text, test designed, and see your performance best. So if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and share to a friend. And if you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you want access to this presentation, as mentioned, I'll put it down below so you can look through this at your own pace. But yeah, adios, good luck, Tom.